So just real quick, just a recap for beginner, relative beginner, newer clients, and people who aren't really lifting super heavy, people who are not using percentages for yet. I'm usually going to give rep ranges for people to hit because intrinsically they're gonna understand what that means to them and what kind of weight they should start using. Again, they might mess up a few times, but after a short period of time, they're going to quickly adapt. Also, AMRAPs used once or twice during the workout is going to be really powerful tool because it gives instant feedback to you and to the client so they understand what's too light versus what's too heavy versus what's about right. Now, when we are programming for clients and using percentages, it's going to be a little bit more involved, understandably. So first things first, you should always be basing clients' workouts around their training maxes. And what a training max is, it's simply a percentage of your true max. And your true max is simply how much weight you can lift on a given lift on any given day. So for instance, a lot of people are shooting for like a 225 bench, right? Or a 315 squat or a 4 or 5 deadlift or higher or, lower. Everybody has kind of their own target. That's your 1 rep max. If I could bench press 225 for 1 rep, that's my 1 rep max. Now, I do not need to actually lift 225 for 1 rep for that to be my approximate 1 rep max. Because when it comes to lifting, it's actually a lot of percentages and a lot of simple math that'll give you a lot of answers that a lot of really smart people have already figured out for us. So for instance, we have rep calculators, something I'm just going to show you right now. So as I said, really smart people have already figured out a lot of math related questions when it comes to lifting. So when someone establishes their 1 rep max, I'm almost never going to have them go for a true one rep max. And this is for 2 reasons. The first reason is it's the risk to reward ratio there is just really not really present for that average person. There's no real need for an average person who is not a powerlifter to go for a true 1 rep max. From a practical standpoint, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of effort to establish a true 1 rep max. Powerlifters train their entire career to display their max strength when they're up and actually performing at a meet. So they practice this very often at really maximal weights. So they perfect their form down to the smallest millimeter. The average person is not going to have that much practice. So for them to display their true 1 rep max, they're just not going to have the practice. So they could test lower than they otherwise would. Most people tend to do a little bit better with a rep max, 1 rep max test. And what I mean by that is tell someone to pick a given weight and lift it anywhere from about 3 reps to 6 reps. And then you can input that. There's tons of 1 rep max calculators. There'll obviously be one included for you here. But you just input those numbers into the calculator, and it'll tell you exactly what your 1 rep max is, approximately what your 1 rep max is. Now, again, just to say, for instance, we have 225 here. I did 225 for 6 reps. So my approximate 1 rep max would be 260 pounds. Now, this is not to say that I could walk into the gym and lift 260 pounds. Again, clients won't necessarily have that practice to go and display that skill. There's all sorts of things that go into actually displaying this true 1 rep max. So this is why I always go with a rep max, because people will generally hit reps with lighter weights much more easily than they will a true 1 rep max. So again, let's just say that your client did a 225 bench for 6 reps. So their approximate bench press 1 rep max is 260 pounds. So this is not quite what we're going to base all our training off of, because this would be the true 1 rep max. What I actually train all of my clients off of, and what I highly encourage you to train all of your clients off of, is a training max, which is not the actual max. And again, as I said, it's just a percentage of your actual max. In this case, this is 90%. You can see it here. The formula says 90% of the actual max. And this is just something that a lot of different strength coaches have talked about. I heard it first from Jim Wendler, who wrote 531. A lot of different coaches talk about this. It's something that I've always used just about in my entire training career, just because it makes a lot of sense, which I'll get into shortly. So why a training max versus an actual max? And the answer is really simple. The training max is just like the rep ranges for a lot of people. It gives you a lot of breathing room when it comes to training, because for us, even though like we're trainers, we train pretty hard, we're still relatively average people when it comes to our abilities and our training and our nutrition and our sleep. I'm probably above average compared to a lot of people, but when we look at elite athletes, they're really dialed in with a lot of different things. Like their nutrition's perfect, their training is perfect. All sorts of things are being done perfectly. So they can train closer to their absolute threshold compared to us who are relatively average. So taking that into account, we want to use a training max because that allows a lot of fluctuation, or allows us to modulate our training intensity just depending on the day. So for those days that we didn't sleep that great, maybe we just got a new puppy, got 2 puppies here, all sorts of things going on in our life. There's maybe a global pandemic going on and you're not allowed outside your house. Lots of things can go on with our life. So this is going to affect our recoverability levels, going to affect our stress levels. So a training max gives you a lot of breathing room to account for things like that. Also, there's going to be those days that you feel like a monster. You're going to be crushing your workouts. You're having a great day. You have tons of energy. And this will also hold you back just enough that you don't, burn yourself out in that workout so the rest of your week suffers. Because you think about those days that you feel great and you're like, I'm going to go for a PR today, and you crush yourself, and the next day, like your back's a little too sore because you push yourself a little too hard, things like that. This is where a training max is really going to come in handy as well, because it will hold you back just enough from those types of days where you don't short circuit yourself for the rest of the week or the rest of the month. Also, what a training max does is it gives you lots of breathing room when it comes to the intensity of the workout. Because if you're working at a really high intensity, there's not really a lot of breathing room here to progress. Like if something gets out of whack, again, like if your stress level gets out of whack for whatever reason, now you've kind of superseded your recoverability levels. So it just gives you a lot of breathing room and a lot of room to keep growing with the program and keep continually progressing without getting to the point where you're outstripping your recoverability levels. Likewise, with the training max, our progress for weights is going to be really slow as well. And again, this just gives us lots of room to grow. If you are using weights that are a little too light, while you're progressing a little too slowly, you just give yourself a lot of wiggle room to play with for those days or those weeks or those months where things just really aren't going well, rather than trying to train at your absolute threshold, and you can very quickly outstrip that. So training a little too slow and a little too light while increasing your weights a little too slowly allows you to progressively get better while the weights stay sub-maximal for you without getting to the point where you outstrip again your levels to recover.